It'll be posted on the town's YouTube channel.
Rich is back. Did I miss anything?
We all won the lottery.
Oh, click. Meeting hung up. One of my coworkers asked that, goes, "Did you win the lottery?" I'm like, "I'm at this conference call, am I?" Steve's the chair in this night, so any word on Steve?
Anyone have his cell phone number?
I do. I will text him. First of all, get onto these things, and someone texts you, "Hey, are you trying to get onto these things?" So I texted him and see if he's got some kind of issue.
This is Rob.
And I think Randy was going to be on too.
I think I just heard.
Rob, will you talk again so I can rename you?
Yep, this is Rob. You need me to say more?
No, I got it.
All right.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, is that you, Steve?
Yes, I'm Steve. I'm sorry.
Call-in user.
Usually I get a notification like 10 minutes before. I lost track of time. Am I the only one, or is there other people on?
No, the room is full with Jim Burge, Rich Prendergast, Rob McCarthy, Frank Chan, and 4 members of the public.
Okay. So I guess the first order of business, welcome everyone. I guess the first order of business would be to approve the minutes of last meeting. Were those sent out?
They were sent out back in December,
Okay.
and they're on the town's website.
Oh, on the town's website, but not to the individual members. All right. Well, maybe we should postpone approving them until, has everyone read the minutes? I don't hear anyone, Jen. Okay. I'm sorry?
Steve, Jim Burge, I was able to read them.
Yeah. Has everyone read them? I mean, we got to vote to approve them. I didn't read them. I was waiting for them to come in my email like the normal way we review things. I didn't realize they were posted on the that we had to go to the post on the town website.
Yeah, I did get mine.
The chairman distributes them, Steve.
I did
I'm
get
sorry?
mine from an email.
I didn't see them in an email. That's why I asked for them before. Well, is everyone? Can everyone hear me? I've never run one of these, so it's a little different, I guess.
I can hear you, Steve.
Everyone can hear? Okay. So are there any, can we approve them? Has everyone read the minutes? Hello?
Yep, this is Rob. I think I did receive them, but I didn't get a chance to read them myself, so.
All right. So why don't we put off approving the minutes to last minute's meeting until the next task force meeting? If we could have a motion for that, I guess. Does anyone want to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion. This is Jim Burge, that we postpone accepting the minutes from November 17th till the next design task force meeting.
Can we have a second?
This is Rob. I'll second him. Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Steve, we're having a little trouble. Rich can't hear, he said in the chat box.
All right.
Randy's not on, is he?
Oh, Randy's not. Okay. I thought we had a full. Well, we have a quorum, I guess, with three people equals a quorum, I believe.
Frank, can you hear us, Frank Chan?
Frank Chan here. I abstained because I was not at the November meeting.
No, you don't have to abstain though, because we're voting to approve these at the next meeting. So we're not approving to approve. We're not voting to approve the minutes. We're voting to postpone approving them till next meeting.
I
So
abstain.
you can actually vote.
I abstain anyway.
Okay. All right. So who do we have? And Rich can't hear us. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. He's switching to a different computer now.
Okay.
Steve, is there any way you could come in on the video instead of just calling in?
I will. I
It would
will
make it
once.
easier for you, I think.
I will. I'll do that in about probably 15 minutes. But right now, I'm walking my dog because I normally get like a reminder from my calendar, but I didn't get one and it slipped my mind. So, is Rich on?
Not quite yet.
Okay. So Frank is here. Rob is here. James is here. I'm here, and then I guess Rich. Randy's not here. Randy was the only one that replied saying that he can't make it. So Jennifer,
Yes.
when we get a notice for the WPCA, it's usually like an invite where you accept.
Yeah, I think there
I
might
don't
have been, well, Michelle and I work together in the selectman's office to get the meetings ready, so.
Okay, so I don't know. This was a little different, but when I accept, it usually says, "Will you be able to attend?" You hit accept, and then it goes into like for me, it goes into my Google account calendar, and then my Google calendar is set up to remind me. It gives me an alarm saying, you have a meeting in the next half hour. Or depending on, usually I set it for an hour because sometimes my meetings are usually an hour away, so I don't want to miss them. So I don't know if maybe the next one we can do that so that I'm not stuck out in the middle of nowhere walking a dog.
Sure.
But I should know anyway, but it's just it's helpful for me. I knew about it. I told my family I had one at 7:30 tonight, but that was this morning. I just slipped my mind. Walk my dog at this time. So 1, 2. Frank abstains, so I can't. You have one, me, Rich. There's 5 people, so I need Rich to chime in to postpone the acceptance of the minutes to the next meeting.
Hey, Jennifer, as Frank Chen here, I changed my vote to acceptance of the minute to a later time.
Okay.
That thing's moving.
Okay, so that's three votes. That's Rob, James, and Frank vote to postpone acceptance of the minutes to the next meeting, which means we can get on to the next.
Rob McCarthy's also.
Yeah, Rob. Yeah, I'm sorry, Rob, James, and Frank. And now we can go on to the other items. The first one is I think it's the letter.
Rich is back.
I'm back.
Oh, good.
Sorry for the disruption to your meeting.
That's all right. So, Rich, we decided to postpone approval of the minutes till the next meeting from November 17th because not everyone's read them.
Okay.
Okay. So let's get on to the next one, which is really the wells and what we're going to do there. I'll just give you my take on the stuff I've read, what I've done, and what I haven't gotten received back. But so the well thing has to get settled, obviously. Rich believes it's a priority, which if other people are going to be talking to our customers, I think it is. What I read, Rich, is that we can make separate districts. And they gave an example. Let's say there's a neighborhood a quarter mile away that wants to hook in, but there's no one in between the last hookup on a project. the statute basically says you can make a separate district and charge the neighborhood more for the connection trunk. So that the other people that really aren't getting the benefit of that trunk to the neighborhood don't incur any more costs. I didn't see anywhere in there that they said we can make 15 separate districts in a project where a house is located to charge them. So my question is, well, my feeling is I would like, if we were to go about that, but I guess the first question is, would we ever want to do that as a WPCA? Would we want to tell people in 15 separate homes that they will incur more costs if they don't abandon their wells? I guess, I mean, the other stuff doesn't really matter. If we decide yes, then it does. But if we say, no, I don't think that's the way to go about it, then the point is moot.
Well, I think the second thing, if this is Rich speaking, I think we do have to come to that decision. I firmly believe that we can charge different people, different houses, and we are charging. Our current plan is charging different, and it's on a basis for some reason. You know, and that basis goes back to cost. So like the simple terms, big house pay more, little house pay less. It's also related to the value of the house too. So there's that aspect of it. But if we kind of put all this in hold for a minute, right now our private beach associations are building it with the higher cost. And the DEEP has told us to build our design with the higher cost until we get approved that the wells are abandoned. We know the less than 25 feet between the well and the sewer line has to be abandoned per Department of Health. That's what they told us. So it's not really a question. It's more like notification. So the thing is, Department of Health is making this demand on us and then turning around and telling us to make the demand on the residents, which is not really fair, but it is what it is.
Within 25 feet, it can't be sleeved. It has to be abandoned.
Correct.
Even for irrigation?
No, drinking water.
Okay.
For drinking?
Yeah.
Okay. So, they're going to have to.
I just assume we're talking about drinking water. So, sorry.
All right. So, okay. And then from 25 feet to 75 feet, it has to be sleeved.
It can be sleeved or they can be abandoned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So then I think there are two parts to this problem. One is, what do we do as the WPCA to force, I mean, I guess, who forces? The WPCA, I don't know if the WPCA has the authority to force someone to abandon a well.
No, we don't. Well, I'm not saying that, but we have the ability to charge them the extra cost if we wanted to. And
yep,
I'm not saying we want to do that. I'm also saying that either way we do it, we have to come up with a reason that's how we turn around and support it.
Okay, so within 25 feet, you're telling me they have to abandon their well for potable water?
For drinking water, yes. If
yes.
Frank Chan was on the call, I mean, I think his letter references those requirements.
Yes, Frank Chen.
Okay.
That's the health code. Within 25 feet, you have to abandon it. Between 25 and 75, you can get around by adding special protection to the pipe, to the sewer pipe.
Okay.
So, I mean, what you brought up last time, Steve, I thought about it quite a bit. The reason why those wells had to be abandoned is because the project design put the force main there, the sewer main there. So
yep.
I think that, a different design could have put it on Swan or on Hartford Avenue. So I don't think we can penalize the specific property owners on that street. I think the location of the sewer main benefits all the people in that project.
Correct.
So I really think, after thinking quite a bit about it, that the cost of both either providing connected water or putting the extra sleeve on it should be shared across 240 houses, 240 properties in Soundview. I think that would be fair. But if you look at the cost, the estimated cost, that adds about $500 per property over 20 years. So that, I mean, it's money, but it's about $500 over 20 years.
Yep. Okay. So thank you for your opinion. Is there anyone else that wants to chime in on Frank's comments?
This is Rich. I'm kind of leaning towards that. And, you know, maybe if we have more opinions, then we have a part B to that same conversation. And so what I'm saying is, you know, it's pretty tough for a homeowner. If they were going to already do it, then it's no big deal. But if they're not going to do it and they don't want to do it and their life is disrupted, then it seems like it makes sense for our project to cover that cost and spread it over everyone, because as Frank said, it supports everyone. If it wasn't Portland, and it makes a very good point, it'd be, you know, Hartford or Swan or something like that, and it just move the cost to different streets.
Right.
For those that would complain that we're somehow giving residents some kind of freebie, like connecting to Connecticut Water when everyone else had to pay. Well, it's not exactly true. We're giving them a way to put the sewers in and not have the interference and comply with the Department of Health as best as possible. So,
Right. I mean, I would think that we would say that it's benefiting everyone because it's a lower cost in the long run.
well, you remember, there's always two different opinions on what we did, you know, what we decide. So, you know, that's why we're
Right.
carefully looking at this to make sure that we cover it. We don't want to just cavalier say, "Oh, we're going to do it," and, you know.
Right, right. Okay, so that takes, I'm in agreement with Frank on this, that I think it would be unwise, number one, to try to set up 15 different districts to make these people pay for the forced abandonment of their well. They have to abandon it. So I actually don't think there's much of a I don't think it's part of the project cost. They have to abandon their well, but for us to put our project in. So I don't think there's much of a gray area there. We're forcing them to abandon their drinking source, and I think that we should replace
There is
that.
one thing, Steve. The state requested us to request them to abandon their wells. Not just the 25 feet, but the 75 feet as well. The exact words
Now,
were, make a strong effort to get people to abandon their wells.
Correct. So let's talk about the 25 to 75, because the 0 to 25, they have to. It's not even a question. They have to abandon their well. So, I mean, that has to, I would say that it's fairly clear cut that for us to put our sewer in, we're going to remove their drinking source. We should replace it. I don't think many people would say otherwise. But now let's go to the 25 to 75 foot, because they don't actually have to abandon their well. So now we're talking about a different situation where the state is going to ask us to request and strongly suggest that they abandon their well, right?
So we could handle that with an encouragement. like want you to do this and it's for the benefit of you and so forth, and we might be able to give you a credit up to a certain amount, which means
Yeah.
sharing of it.
Correct.
So it's like an incentive. If they take it, we pay some money, but it's less expensive than if we sleeve it.
Correct. Now, how many houses are we talking about between 25 and 75 feet?
I thought I remembered 9, but Frank, maybe you have a better memory than me.
So if it is 9, you know, I put in services in Guilford, water services in Guilford, and the running rate without ledge, which was a big factor, was between $4,000 and $5,000. So, and that included a backflow preventer. That included a backflow preventer for people that want to keep their well for irrigation. You know, it's generally like 75 feet of copper. You have the meter box. No, I don't know. I didn't pay for the permit for Connecticut Water, but I think it's $750. Or maybe it's $5,000. Honestly, I don't know what the cost is for the permit itself to hook up to Connecticut Water. I do know that the construction cost would most likely fall around $5,000. And I can guarantee that. I'll go down and do them for $5,000. You know, so I can guarantee you that they'd be $5,000. You know, they're not that difficult. The plumber usually charged with the backflow preventer about $900. And then you had the meter pit, which was $750. And then the copper. And then it was just digging. And the digging down there's no ledge, you just go. So, I mean, they're not going to be very expensive. So, I mean, we could come up with a number to give them a credit. It's $5,000 cheaper than sleeping.
Yeah, the 5,000, I've heard that number before, and we could do that as a credit. We have to also talk about how we structure it, because I don't want to get into making payments to residents. I'm totally in favor of having our contractor do the work for them, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I know some people want to do the work themselves because they have the equipment or they're in that business. But
right.
It's, if you don't know, it is not easy sending checks through the town of Old Lyme, and I don't want to send checks to residents and clean water funds trying to recover that. It's crazy.
Yeah. Why? Right. So, so are we hedging towards having some? Well, I mean, that could be handled, Rich, in the bid items themselves.
So if we're agreeable to this, we're forming some thing to say, wells 25 and out. We send a letter out, and the letter says 25 feet and out, you have to abandon your wells, and we plan on including that cost into the construction of the project. So our contractor will be doing it, but you have to agree to it. And if they don't agree to it, then we have to have a discussion with Department of Health and say, well, you're making this requirement. The resident refuses. You're either going to have to accept that, or you're going to have to use your authority. And then the 75 to 25 feet, we set right in the letter saying you should abandon it, and we'll give you a credit of construction of abandoning that and connecting to Connecticut Water, a limit to this amount, because the average is maybe 5,000, but who knows? There may be some strange situation, or they may want to do something different or additional. Like, I don't know. It can't be unlimited.
Right. And then let's take the last one, which are unregistered wells. I don't want to call them illegal. I don't know what you call them, but wells that don't have permits and aren't sanctioned or recognized by the health department. Just go, they get nothing, right?
So I had a conversation with the Department of Health and with the state and with the private beach associations. The best person, the private beach association, was the engineer that says you have to identify those wells in your plan. And you have to come up with a plan for those wells. And I'm like responding like, how can we identify something we don't know?
Well,
how can we be responsible for something we don't know? And the response
process of
was
elimination.
exactly. They're not buying Connecticut water and they don't have a permitted well. Then how are they getting their water? And in some cases, it could be abandoned property or a property that's not being used. But you know, there's those are the easy ones. The ones that actually, you know, somebody's there. You don't know how they're getting the water.
Do we know if there's any shared wells?
There's shared wells and there's shared water mains between houses, and they're not supposed to be.
The other question that came up at one of our prior meetings was that the well could be also just from a really long time ago and just wasn't permitted at that time. And so I'm not sure we can treat them any different. If they've got a well and we figure it out, we just need to handle them the same way.
So I'm in favor of that because that clears us with the Department of Health and the state. I mean, here's our plan. Here's the ones that we know, and here's the ones we don't know, and you know, then we brace for, you know, conflict. Hopefully there is none, but
Well, yeah, we're trying to avoid that for sure. And I think that this thought is certainly less likely to have conflict than if we just said you have to abandon your well. So I'll agree with Rob too, that if they have a well within 5 feet, we should offer a certain amount for them to abandon it because they have to. Between 25 and 75 feet, we offer the same amount to entice them to abandon it. In either way, in the long run, it's far cheaper to pay for the Connecticut water and abandonment hookups than it is to sleeve the pipe.
yeah. Agreed.
So the ones less than 25, was that about 15?
Yeah.
No, I thought it was.
No, it's Frank Chan here. There are only 6 of them under 25.
Okay.
Oh, six, and then another 9 that we know are between 25 and 75.
That's correct.
Well, that's not too
And
bad.
then that's where we get 15 from. So that's 75. And then there's probably, what do you think, Rob? 5 or 6 unknown wells?
Yeah.
Well, not
It's Frank Chan
certain.
here. First and O'Neill identified, they have listed 7 properties that they don't know the status about their water sources.
Okay, so 7?
7.
7.
Okay. All right. So we're talking around 22.
Is can I clarify something? Is that just Portland, or is that Portland, Hartford, and Swan?
It's Frank Chan here. It's 4 in Portland and 3 on Shore Road.
Okay, so
Okay.
Is it only
Frank, are
wells
you-
along the run of the force main?
right, we need those, hold on.
Amazon's delivering probably.
No, someone set a timer is going to go off continuously. So, who's doing the well study? I thought it was Rob, but is Frank helping you, or is Frank? Who's tracking the wells?
Well, I drafted the first letter. I also looked at the plans from President O'Neill, which indicated the location of the wells that they could identify.
Okay,
Also
all right.
included a list of 7 on Portland and on Shore Row, which they could not identify whether they have a well or not.
So, one thing I talked to Jason briefly after our meeting, the WPCA meeting. The other thing we have to look at is those wells that are in the back of the yard that could be 75 feet from the other street. I don't know if there are any, but you could run into a situation where if there's a well in someone's backyard on, let's say, Hartford, it could be within 75 feet of Portland.
Yeah.
Steve, I don't know if you look at the plans, the 3-page plan from President O'Neill, actually shown 25-foot and 75-foot radius over the map.
Okay.
The map of Soundview, and also covers the next neighborhood.
Okay. All right. So we're talking about 22 properties. So
This is Rob. I disconnected by accident. I'm back.
that's so the Rich, can you summarize what you think we should put in the letter?
I think we have, we reframe the letter and we say the different tiers. The 25 and less, you have to abandon your well per regulations. And I think Frank's already got that in there. And we plan on absorbing this cost in the project. The 75 to 25 feet wells, we prefer that you abandon your well, and we'll assist you up to this amount to abandon the well and connect to Connecticut water. We need you to respond what your intentions are with your well. That's the second page. And then, from then we report back to the state, here's our plan, what we're going to do. Here's this number, that number, whatever. And if we have some problems like the less than 25 refuse to abandon their well, we're going to have a discussion with the state.
How does that sound to everyone?
It sounds like one question I had sent on the attachment 2. This is Jim Burge. Maybe at number 3 for the folks that are within 25 to 75 for irrigation only.
Well, irrigation, they can have it. It doesn't have a limit as far as where it is, as long as it's separate from the house drinking water.
Okay,
Right.
so we don't need to have a checkbox or anything on that.
They wanted to have a backflow preventer and not connected to the house. So I'm not sure why I need a backflow preventer when it's not connected to the house, but that's what they want.
I can tell you why. Because I had to do that in Guilford. Someone disconnected from the house, sold the house. Someone didn't want to pay Connecticut Water their fee, reconnected the old well and contaminated a public water supply. After that, the state statute says that you have to have a backflow preventer and disconnected from the house. You can't connect that well. You still have to have it disconnected, but they want the backflow preventer, I guess, to avoid another situation like that.
That sounds like a bad regulation though, but whatever.
So I agree with James though, that the people between 25 and 75 would be more apt to abandon their well for potable water if they knew they could use it for irrigation and car washing and everything else. And so that should be a checkbox. We will abandon our well for potable water, but we'll be able to use it for other purposes.
For irrigation with backflow preventer. So I mean, that's, you got to figure that irrigation is probably going to be the largest cost to the homeowner.
Right, right.
So the response for someone that's complaining about of us funding this is what we talked about before. It's cheaper to do it this way. It's a sewer requirement, and it benefits the entire project area because depending on where the main goes, could impact different residents the same way. And it's all just the luck of the draw where the pump station was, as well as we might have these interferences with other streets as well. So, and it moves it forward. So, I mean, that's our value statement, I guess, is how to explain it. And I'm asking, so if anyone disagrees or has others, please, committee members, say something.
Well, I like the whole thing. I think that we decided that we're gonna bring this letter up at the next meeting. Is that correct? For the WPCA to look at?
I think we need the WPCA to do a final vote on it because it's such a big issue.
Okay.
And the WPCA committee is going to be, well, they're going to be aware of the elements from our engineers, and this is one of those elements that's kind of a big ticket item.
So, Frank, you're drafting that letter. Do you think that we could, Jennifer, prior to the next normal WPCA meeting so that people can review it and we can have a motion to approve?
Yeah, sure. I'll get it out in 2 days.
Great, great. Rich, does that sound good?
Yeah, I can support that.
Okay. All right. I mean, I don't think we need a motion for that. I think it's just,
No, it's a task. We do
it's
it.
just a task. All right. That's great. So then, are there any other comments on this topic? All right. Not having any other comments, we'll go to the next one, 3B, the possibility of having the beach associations include Portland Avenue in their bid and being reimbursed by the old line WPCA. I brought this up because sequencing, we are going to be behind the well, there's a number of ways to do this, but the force main and the sewer line on Portland Avenue is really almost in the same trench. The sewer line is deeper, and then the force main is above it. Because the water line is on one side of the road, both the force main, unless you want to sleeve everything, which I don't think we want to do, both the force main and the sewer go to the other side of the street. Being that, if you put the force main in, you then have to dig and support the force main, or put the sewer line in, backfill, and offset the force main in the same trench, and then put the force main in. I brought this up for discussion to see if, number one, Rich deals with the beach associations more than anyone, I believe, on the WPCA, and I wanted his take on whether he feels it's even worth pursuing. And then
I've got a comment on it if you want.
I'm sure you do. And then I don't even know if it's financially feasible to do that, but or how the accounting would work. But I'd love to hear Rich's comments.
So the goal of combining the effort is valid and makes sense from a logical point of view. I gotta assume there's maybe some cost efficiencies. From having the idea of how it was originally thought of was a great idea, starting point. And I'm trying to be nice here, but there's no way in hell it's going to work. And I'll tell you why. It took 5 months for the beach associations to get their zoning permit. They'd have to change that. They would have to then go to the state and change their design plan because it would jeopardize their funding. They would have to fund us. And I know if the shoe was on the other, they said, fund us $2 million, we'll pay you back in 2 years. And the deep clean water funds won't be applicable to that unless they change their plan. They wouldn't do it because they can't afford it. And I know we can't afford it. I mean, the town has money, but the town doesn't use money that way. So those are the main things. Then you got to work with negotiating with the beach associations, which is not one person; it's a bunch of people. So our plan to get this to go is get our IMAs done, get our application, our design plan done, and our application to the clean water funds, get our funds. We can go out to bid. If our bid shows up the same time their bid shows up, we can combine contractors and even ask them to consider the other bids and have them both done at the same time, different contractors, or both done at the same time by the same contractor. And that would accomplish our goal. But otherwise, I had a discussion with their chief engineer and the beach associations, and he also mentioned about other permits that require revision, including the inland wetlands permits and the flood management certification. So he didn't take long, but he made a compelling case that it'd be very challenging to get them to do it.
All right, so then I've thought of other options besides that. One is to get in front of them. However, I don't see us starting prior to the end of summer, September. We're not going to get a set of plans bid and people starting prior to summer. I don't think
they might not get it either. I mean, they're pushing. They're pushing real hard.
Right. So they may not. Right. They may not even get it. So the other thing is, they'll have to pull permits. They have to, I believe they'll have to pull a road opening permit with the town of Old Lyme to open up any of the city streets. So we might have to delay that. There is a huge additional cost in digging around an existing utility. We on a project I did in Middletown, we were paid $60 a linear foot to support existing utilities. So if you multiply that by all of Portland Avenue, you might incur another $60,000, $70,000 to dig near that force main. There's no reason to have that force main in until the very end, because until the sewer and the pump station are done, the force main's not going to be used. So maybe we can work with the other beach associations to ensure that at the very least that force main is completed maybe a month before the pump station is completed, so that we don't hold up anything. But on the other hand, we're not, they could put that in first before going down 156 if they wanted to. I mean, to the contractor, it doesn't matter to them whether they work from East Lyme this way or from here to East Lyme. You still got to dig the same amount of material and put it all back. So maybe there's more, maybe we can pursue a collaborative effort with the beach associations to try to get Portland Avenue put on the latter end of the schedule instead of first, to allow us some time to get our sewer in.
That's very possible. They have priorities, and they're developing a priority. What goes in first? They have a private easement that has a keep out time period, and they have the state 156 that they have to do as urgent as possible. And then after those are done, then they think that they doing the other ones. So you're right. They have to do their own collection pipes. we have to build a pump station, and then force main, maybe we could have them put that as last as possible, give us the best chance of catching up.
Are there anyone that wants to?
That sounds reasonable.
No, that makes sense, Steve. I guess the one question is, so that what you're saying is our gravity main is going to be below the force main for the entire length of Portland Ave? Is there, up by 156, would it come up close to it?
I would highly doubt that. The force mains are usually dug at the minimum depth of cover, which is 4.5 feet, 5 feet.
Yep.
So it doesn't freeze. Gravity is started at the highest point it can and then runs down. I mean, you put it in from the lowest point, but like if you're hooking up all these houses on the street and the house has a 4-foot depth of thing, then you can't go higher than that because that house wouldn't be able to hook up. So usually, in almost all circumstances, the gravity sewer is not only deeper, but much deeper. Like when it gets into the pump station, it's going to be 15, 16 feet deep.
Yeah, I understand that. Down by the beach, it's going to be deep, but just up by 156, I wasn't sure.
So at 156, if you're dealing with 1,000 feet of pipe, and it's a minimum of an 1/8 inch, depending on the pipe size, but I would imagine they're using 8-inch pipe. It's an 1/8 inch per linear foot. So, you go at 1,000 feet, it's 1,000 divided by 8, it's 3 feet? No. It's about 12 feet, 14 feet. So it will, it's the gravity sewer in almost all circumstances will be lower than the force main. That's all I can say.
The Beach Association engineer and our engineer both said the same. Said the gravity would be lower because of design. The force main would be higher up because it doesn't need to be. So you're right, Steve.
No,
you heard it from me.
One is relying on gravity to bring it to its location. The other one's relying on a pump to pump it wherever. So you're not locked into a certain depth, except you don't want it to freeze. So usually it's 4-foot cover, 4.5 foot cover. Are there any other comments or questions on that item? So I guess we really haven't, Rich, here. Do you want to discuss that with, you want some time to think about discussing it with the beach associations, or?
I'm just going to tell them, can you do this and see what happens? And,
Okay.
Our engineer is coordinating with their engineer. Remember, we were paying for some of this coordination.
Yeah.
So, we'll ask them to do that, and it's not unreasonable. So, they're reasonable when it's reasonable, but, they're not reasonable if we ask them to pay for stuff for us.
Okay. All right. So let's try that route, but let's try to get that on the back, because otherwise it's going to cost us a lot of money. Not us, but the association, the people that are using it. Let's get on to the next one, which is 3C, traffic control issues and bidding. I spoke to Jason about this, Jason Giaconatis about this, and a way of bidding this is to put the traffic control as an allowance using the Old Line Police as a figure, and then seeing if in situations that are detoured or that not necessarily need Old Line Police, use private traffic controllers. But it would be as an allowance. So it's whatever the contractor spends would be reimbursed. It's not, he gets, it's not as though he would get, it's not a bid item an hour for traffic control. It's an allowance. It says there's $100,000 set aside in this contract for traffic control. And when you produce the invoices of what you spent, we reimburse you. And so it relieves the WPCA of determining who or what entity to use. And it also covers the costs of the higher amount if we had to use it. Now I see Officer Cornell here. I don't know, is there a way to recognize him, Rich?
Yeah, you could ask to recognize them. The thing is, you're allowed to bring in expert testimony, that kind of thing. But generally you have to recognize who they are and what they're representing. And they represent, like Wood & Curran as an engineer is allowed to come in. We have the engineer represent Wood & Curran. Not individual, but the actual company.
Yeah.
So Jason's always got to be very careful what he says. So.
Do you think we should hear from Officer Cornell in this meeting?
If you're asking me, Rich Pendergast, I have no problem with that. I think we have to have a discussion. So if we have maybe new information that we end up coming up with some kind of decision or whatever, that new information has to be shared with the larger group, because I think this is all a big ticket item. You know, when we're talking a strategy session, that common sense or something that's been delegated to the task force, that's what this is for. If we're talking about money and budget, then I think that to me deserves the wider WPCA to make a final decision.
I'm totally in agreement with that. So does someone have to make a motion to recognize Officer Cornell?
No, as chairman, you could call them forward to the table. It just happens like in the selectmen meetings as well. It's like somebody's in the audience and they call them forward. They have to be some kind of expert. You can't play favorites and call your friend in the audience. So they have to be part of some kind of group.
Well, I don't think I have any friends in the audience, Rich, so I'm not playing favorites here. I would,
Well, you get my point.
Yes, I get your point. If Officer Cornell would like to be recognized to give us his input into traffic control for this project, I would certainly recognize him. But would you like to put any input in, Officer Cornell? Hello?
He might, I think Jennifer might have to unmute him.
Jennifer?
I sent a request for him to unmute.
It looked like he's heard me.
I'll try sending a chat.
Okay.
This happens sometimes.
All right, I sent a chat message. I'm not who he thinks I am.
Yeah, I don't think, okay. Yeah, you don't work for the Oline Police Department. I didn't think so. Because you're not listed on the town website. But, okay, so yeah, so it's not appropriate to call anyone in. It's
No, I won't call. So then I guess it comes down to bidding strategy.
Well, Steve, you're for this. I'm against it, and I'll explain my side of it. I don't think we need the level of expertise of the police officers on these roads. The 156 for sure, definitely. And since we're
But there's
already
no
talking
choice
about
there.
these are likely going to be out of season, then maybe there's a compromise of in season and out of season. And the only reason why I'm against it is I don't think it's necessary, and I'm trying to keep the cost down. And I just remember the Connecticut Water doing their thing, and I don't even know if they had flaggers or police officers. They probably should have, but they dig some holes and people would walk by or drive by, and the speed limit's 25 miles an hour. It should be probably 15, but people are doing like 30. So I that's where I fall on this, and it's
So,
nothing against the police department. It's not that I don't want to support them. It just I'm looking at cost.
okay, so Rich, I think I think that you have taken my message out of context.
Oh,
I don't support having police officers direct traffic. On 156 by state statute, you need a police officer or certified that's approved by the DOT. So we're not talking about state roads, we're talking about town roads. I don't think you need police officers to direct traffic. I don't even know if you need private traffic control people if your detours are set up correctly. All I was saying is when at the meeting I had with the town police department told me is that they believe that you're going to need police officers. Like I said, I asked if there's a town ordinance. In Middletown, it's a town ordinance. You need to hire police officers. There is no town ordinance in Old Lyme that requires us to hire police officers. So there's not a statute or a regulation in our town that requires us to do that. However, the traffic control plans do have to be approved, which is where you may end up, whether it's in the town ordinance or not, hiring police officers. And so if you use the higher figure, you can't get hurt. It's kind of like what the DEP wants us to do, or the Department
I
of Health
have no
wants.
problem using that strategy, the higher figure. The only problem is if that higher figure is put in, generally what happens is that higher figure gets used. And maybe we can avoid this whole conversation or decision because you mentioned about the traffic control plan has to be approved. It has to be approved by the selectmen, the town police, or the director of public works, one of them. So we ask them all. We ask the first selectman, what do you think? And defer to their decision.
All right, well, the first selectman was in that meeting.
Well, I mean, we need, unless that meeting's decided it, in which case, then, okay. If we're being directed to do that, then that's fine, but.
Well, I don't know
think
if
it
we're
was
being
decided.
directed. I don't know if we're being directed. All I do know is that the police in front of the first selectman said, we feel as though, and the first selectman, well, the first selectman went on to some other stuff about 156 and things that really didn't concern us. We, on a state road, there's a whole spec on state roads that we have no control over. So it doesn't really matter on state roads. On the public roads in Old Lyme, there's certainly precautions we have to take. And on the private associations, I don't know if they apply to anything except what they feel is necessary. You know, I don't think if a private road says we don't need traffic control, I don't think that there's any way someone could force them to have traffic control. But that's up to them. I'm just concerned with Old Lyme. What I for Woodward and Curran's sake, if you put in the value as an allowance, it's an allowance, it's a reimbursable. There's no markup on it. You literally, the contractor has to provide the invoices in order to get reimbursed. So if you use a year, 2,000 hours, times the higher amount as an allowance, I believe we'd be safe. And then if no traffic control, or if private traffic control is used, it would come in under that allowance and it's just not spent. I guess as an allowance, the contractor has no monetary reason to hire someone more expensive. As a matter of fact, he has less because it's more money out of his pocket that's not reimbursed right away. I mean, no, it's not that much, but.
Well, I would like to give direction, and I'm thinking we get direction by saying to the first selectman, can you decide who's going to make the decision and what the decision is going to be? We can then tell Wood and Curran, here's what it should be, because the traffic plan will be approved because whoever told us what they wanted to do.
Okay.
And that way, one last thing for us to, someone says, why'd you do that? I said, well, we had the traffic control plan was approved and this was what it was. So, because otherwise we're kind of, if there's any way we can lower the cost, that's kind of what I'm thinking. And if we go in with the higher amount, like you suggest, that does protect us to move it along, but it also takes the decision out of our hands.
So are you suggesting that we get a decision
Yeah, simply ask the first.
prior to drawing up the final document? We'll need a decision.
Yeah, to me, it's there's pros and cons on this, but if the police department and the first selectman have already had a discussion, and the first selectman is going to overrule them if he feels strongly, or if he's going to say, yeah, I'll go with them, or if the public direct, it doesn't. Our town's ordinance doesn't say who does it. It says a traffic control plan by one of them. And I'm pretty sure the police department normally handles public safety, and Tim, the first selectman, may defer to them. But technically, I think he can overrule them.
Well, he's the chief of police
Is he?
in our town. Yeah, he's the chief of police in our town.
I did not know that. I have to be more respectful now.
Yes, first
I never seen him
selectman's
give
chief
out
of
a
police.
ticket, but theoretically he is the chief of police. Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. So I will, unless someone else wants to, I will have that discussion with Tim.
Does anyone else have a comment? I'll be quiet.
This is Rob. I'm going to lean towards kind of Rich's feeling that particularly in the winter time on those dead end roads, more or less, or the roads with no traffic going on, that I'm not sure I see a need for the police or traffic control. But in the summertime, it is necessary. So.
Anyone disagree with Steve taking this action item to talk to Tim and try to get some kind of decision?
I support that.
As Frank Chair, I support that, but make sure we get a definitive answer, not a wishy-washy one.
In writing.
I will ask for it in writing. Yeah. Is that what that means, Frank? In writing?
Well, because we're making decisions on that. So.
Right. No, I understand. No, I would definitely get something in writing to make sure that everyone's on the same page, as we say.
We're just Frank Chair, just to avoid future misunderstandings.
Yeah. Those are all the items that I had. The last item is any other items that anyone sees fit to discuss involving this project and planning. Does anyone have any concerns? All right. I don't know if we have a public comment in this meeting or not.
You don't. You didn't list it on the
No.
agenda.
Don't.
So you have correspondence.
Yeah, I have no correspondence. And does anyone, I don't believe anyone has any correspondence. I didn't receive any correspondence. Rich may have involving this because he's part of the WPCA, the chairman of the WPCA. But does any member have any correspondence concerning the group?
Rich, I don't have any correspondence. Correspondence that it does come in, I would forward to you before this meeting so you could look at it. And other correspondence that's pertaining to WPCA, I haven't had any recently, but I put that in that meeting. So no correspondence for me.
All right. So to sum up the meeting, Frank's going to have a letter out prior to the next meeting, so WPCA members could review it, so we can get the well situation done. Rich is going to request the Beach Association, WPCA, to put the force main on Portland Avenue at the latter end of their schedule. And I will contact Tim and try to get a definitive, i.e. written response to how traffic control should be handled on our part of the project. Besides that, there was no correspondence, and I just need a motion. I'd like to thank everyone, and I would need a motion for adjournment.
Excuse me.
Yes, James.
No, that wasn't me.
No.
Somebody said, excuse me.
Just because it doesn't mean that you didn't put public participation on your meeting notes doesn't mean that you can't have it tonight. I think you should have it for transparency purposes, so you hear from the residents in the area. This is Dennis Malusa.
We need a motion. We need a motion to amend the agenda if you wanted to do that, Steve.
And I would suggest you do that.
Yeah, I don't see how that would, I can see how that could be beneficial. So is there a motion to amend the agenda to allow public comment?
Steve, I'll make a motion to amend the agenda for public comment.
Thank you, James.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Rich.
Rich seconded it.
Okay, is there any person out there that wants to make a comment?
Well, you got to vote, Steve. You got to complete the vote.
I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah. All in favor of amending the
Agenda.
the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
I think that's unanimous.
That's-
All against? All right, the motion carries 4-0.
Okay.
Okay, is there any
I
person
can
out?
lead off if you want.
Sure, Dennis.
Okay. A couple of things. You were talking about moving the force main to the east side of Portland. Okay, that would increase the distance for your 25-foot to the other side of the street. Right now, it's in the middle of the road. My well is 90 feet from the middle of the road. Okay. If somebody has a water line or water, it would be even farther away. So your 25 feet could be 50. Depends on what side of the street it is. That's one thing. Another thing also is I take exception to the state health department mandate that private wells be abandoned near a sewer main. Well water is only down 4 feet to the frost line. Your sewer is going to be lower than that. I can tell you exactly because I have a neighbor who has MDC water. Sewer and a private well on the same property close by. The only distance is 10 feet. You can't be any closer than 10 feet or cross it at 10 foot. They could be in the same trench, as a matter of fact. So that's, and Steve, as somebody who puts this stuff in, you should let the other people who don't, know that state mandate is, yeah, but if you go to a new development and they put in a water line and they put in a sewer line, they're less than 25 feet away from each other, so there's no such thing as contamination at that point. Like I stated, my well is 90 feet to the middle of the road, okay? If you go to the opposite side of the street, it's now going to be 100, 110 feet. I am not hooking up to Connecticut water. The dollar amounts that you're talking about aren't realistic. It might be for the company that you work for, but Mizzy Construction, who did all the water lines this past summer in Somview, were charging $6,000 to $8,000 a house if you weren't already a customer. Only the customers got their water lines replaced. If you were a new customer, you had to pay it. And a lot of people elected not to do that. That's another thing. If you're going to mandate that people pay extra for sleeving water or sewer, all right, that raises the issue of the cost benefit analysis. If sleeving the water and or sewer or both, that's an added expense to the homeowner that does not increase the benefit to their property. Just remember, there's state statutes. You can only charge so much per the value of the house. And also, are there going to be any legal ramifications? Is the WPCA thinking that everything's going to be hunky-dory and everybody wants to join in? I doubt it. You know how people feel. It's not a case that we don't like the idea of the sewer. We want to know why we have to pay it and not the rest of the town. So, there's a lot of people who have filed lawsuits against O-Line before and won in Superior Court. So you guys should think about that. And my last one is police officer versus flaggers. Connecticut Water paid to have the police officers shut down the streets. They were on the side of the road. I couldn't get to my house at the top of Portland Avenue. I had to go all the way around to Bocce to try and come up. I couldn't because they had equipment in the middle on both sides of the street. So you have to think about that. That's inconveniencing people. If you're starting after Labor Day, there's nice weather all the way to November. You have year-round residents there. You have year-round businesses there. Got to think of that also. I know cops are expensive to rent, but it's a cost of doing business. I mean, I could care less. If your equipment is on one side of the street, I can go on the other side of the street to get to my house. But there are a lot of people that aren't, and a lot of them. And I don't consider myself elderly at 70. There are a lot of people in their 80s and 90s. So think of those. I'm all done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Is there anyone else that would like to make a public comment? Hearing none. I know Rich responds to public comments at the WPCA. I'm just going to thank Dennis for his comments, and we'll consider his comments in future meetings and discussions. That being said, is there a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion for adjournment.
Thank you, James. Is there a second?
Yeah,
I'll make a motion to second.
Don't need to drag it out any longer.
Well, well, that happened at the same time as Rob. Give that to Rob.
All right, so meeting's adjourned.
Got to vote.
Do you have to vote on that? You vote on the adjournment?
Robert's
favor?
rules, man.
All in favor?
Yeah, technically we do.
Aye.
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 Ayes have it. Thank you everyone for attending. We'll see you at the next regularly scheduled WPCA.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Good night.
Good night.
Welcome.
Hey, Jennifer, what's your email address?
Email is WPCA.
Wait a second. This is yours or to the board?
This one comes directly to me.
Okay, go ahead. WPCA
at Old Lyme
at Oldlyme
-CT
-CT.gov. I just want to let you know something on your website gave a lot of people viruses,
Oh, that's not good.
and I'm one of the recipients. So just to let you know.
You can always call me, 434-1605, extension 228.
I would have today, but I was on the phone with Samsung and Verizon trying to get that virus off my telephone.
I'll be
And it emanated from you guys.
I'll be there from 12 to 4 tomorrow, Dennis.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. All right, I'm going to stop the recording of the video.